You are a woman and in business, and you have the desire, have kids, or maybe you're pregnant, maybe you have these young kids, and you also have a business, or you have a dream about having a business, and you're this split place, this split identity of not really knowing which path to go on as if you really have to choose. I just want you to know, like, the way I relate to you and the way I have been there, I've been through it, experienced it, and I really feel like I'm on the other side of that, kind of process of deciding the identity and forming it, and really happy and enjoying and at peace of where I'm at, as a business owner and a mom. I have 2 kids, one is 7 months old, one is 2.5 years old, and since having I've had a business for 5 years, so there was a good chunk of the business without kids, and then another about half and half up until this point. And since having kids, the business has done, I think, about $3.9 million, and it's been way more successful with kids than without kids, and I personally actually feel like I'm doing so much, like, better, and I'm so much happier with kids and a business than without. So that's exactly what I wanna talk about with you today, and I wanna tell you a little bit, first of all, the story of really, like, before, um of really actually having a business and kind of where I was at, and then also kind of getting to the place of being on the other side. Growing up, I, like, would fantasize about being a stay-at-home mom, and when I thought about there was no other option. Like, now I think about my future as there are, like, literally the options are limitless, but in that season, seriously, since I was a little girl through college, that was my reality. Like, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I grew up with friends who all had stay-at-home moms. I had maybe 2 friends that had working moms, and I remember them almost looking out of place. Like, they would come to pick up their kid at cheer practice or carpool, and they were always dressed really well, and, they were, like, the only ones that were like that. Like, they stood out from the crowd, and I think at the time I thought that that wasn't a good thing, and now that I'm over, like, older and have experienced a little bit more life, I'm like, "Oh, like, that's actually a good thing, is to stand out as being different." But in the moment, I was like, "That's so weird that they stand out so much." And it was actually a joke in college, that Macy was, myself, quote, "too pretty to work." I actually was given a shirt in college to wear that as, like, my identity, which is just so insane now that I go back and think about it. But truthfully, like, I was there to find a husband and build a life together with that husband. And I did indeed find an incredible husband who was so on board with really whatever I wanted to do. He was like, I love you, whatever you choose, like, we're good, we're going to be great." Well, once I got married, I did indeed have to work. My husband had just started his sales career, and the base salary for a sales job is very low, anticipating that your results will be high if you sell a lot. But in any sales career, not always, but for him, he had to figure it out, right? Like, his first commission check, I think, was like $100. And so I worked, and I was, like, so miserable. And when I look back, I'm like, wow, the job was actually amazing. The people were amazing. I loved my team. But I was just miserable. Like, I just had the worst attitude about working. I really felt like it was someone else's responsibility to provide for me. That's really just how I thought. In the moment, I definitely was not thinking that way. When I look back, I realized that that was my attitude, and that was my thought process. And I just couldn't wait to be done. I couldn't wait to have my days off. I couldn't wait to, like, just be able to leave. Like, I just loved leaving because that literally the feeling of walking outside and hearing that door open was like a breath of fresh air and, like, freedom. And it's so funny because it was like me, I actually was creating the boundaries in my own mind of, like, thinking that I didn't have freedom is, like, what created me not having freedom. I really had so much freedom when I look back, but my brain was creating these prisons in my head of, like, if I have these shackles, if I have these handcuffs on me, I can't be free. And I remember sitting at work and thinking, okay, I definitely don't want to work, but if I have to work for a season, if I have to, I would rather just do it on my own. Like, I would rather just make money by myself and be able to, like, get the iced coffee in the middle of the day. Guys, I know this sounds ridiculous, but this is just my honest thought process. I was like, "At least I can get the iced coffee. At least I can go to Pilates. At least I can run errands or whatever during the day. Like, at least let me do that." And I remember following people on Instagram and thinking, wow, like these people who are selling products on Instagram, they seem to be living their life and just kind of selling on the side and making money. That's what it felt like. And I was like, wow, like I can get behind that 100%. And most of the time, they were selling network marketing products. And I didn't even know what network marketing was during that time period. It was probably 2015, 16. But I just was like, wow, they're selling product, making money, and like working out. And like that's their job. They're getting paid to do that. And so I was like, I'm gonna give it a swing. I'm gonna give it a try. And I started doing it, and thankfully, I was actually very bad at it at first. And the reason I say thankfully is because I wanted it so bad that I became a student, right? I became like willing to learn that identity, and that the saying like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, my teacher appeared, and my teacher was my dad. I say he appeared because he was always there. In fact, he had always been preaching to me the importance of everyone knowing sales skills. I mean, when I say he would bring a projector to our beach trip, our family beach trip, I'm not exaggerating. He would be like, these are packs of paper stapled. He would bring stuff like this to the beach, and we would be sitting in a circle as a family, and he would just start passing out these booklets, and it would be his sales training, and just would basically look at it and throw it to the side. I'm like, "Dad, I don't need this. This is not my life. Like, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. I'm stuff, right? Well, once I became this new identity, a student, I was like, huh, he had something that he was trying to teach me. I think I'm finally ready for it. And that's when I went to him, and he was like, okay, I'll teach you. And we've got to practice, you've got to implement, like it's got to be like a committed process. And I was all in. And that's exactly what I did for 6 months. I went to his office, I learned how to sell. We would do some role play, we would do some practice. And literally, as I was walking out the door, I would have my phone like walking out of his office doing Instagram stories like this, practicing what I had just learned. And through that process, I became very good at sales. I became very good at selling. I stopped being ashamed. I stopped hiding. And you won't believe this, but it became fun. I could not get enough. Like it was I just loved this momentum, vigorous energy. It almost felt like a healthy, vibrant energy that just ignited something in me. And I remember like just waking up at 4 a.m. all of a sudden and like running to my dining room to start working. Like I just could not wait to work. I had this high. And I'm gonna get out my markers here because I think what ended up happening is this cycle that I want to show you that I think really created a new energy in me. The first part of the cycle is creation. The ability to create something and to fall into this identity of a creator. Like we were created by a creator to create. Think about that. We were created by a creator, and he created us to create. Like that's what we're made to do. And what I personally was creating was sales messages. I sold the same product, but I had all these new messages that helped reveal to people that my product could solve their problem. And, someone might create like I literally think of creativity as like knitting. I don't know why that's coming to my head, but someone who's creative in that sense would create all these different types of blankets with all these different patterns and all these different colors, and that would kind of scratch the creation itch. But this creation of sales messages and the ability to take the skill that I was learning, the conversations that I was having, and putting it into a message to share. For me, it was on Instagram stories because it was just the quickest, easiest, most like low risk way to sell was so invigorating. And what this creation did is it allowed me to connect. And, I mentioned in the creation process was, "Hey, I'm going to listen to people's conversations, to what they're saying, listen to the information they were giving me, and then put it in my creation process," and that allowed us to connect with each other. I started dreaming and thinking about other people all the time. When I was miserable at my job, I was, like, thinking about myself all the time and how I didn't wanna be here and I didn't wanna be, shackled to a desk, when really if I just turned it around and thought about who I could connect with, like, that insane gave me so like, I can't even describe the energy that that infused into my blood is what it felt like. And what's crazy is, like, I was working harder than ever before when I was started my business, but I felt the lightest and most energy, and I think this connecting really had a huge piece in that. And then through that connecting, what ended up happening is I was contributing, I had a contribution. Of course, I had contribution to other people in solving their problems, but really like a big piece of my contribution, in my opinion, was helping people think differently through this creation process and through shifting their perspectives, like and people messaging me and being like, wow, I never thought about it that way. What a huge aha moment for me. Like, thank you. To me, I was like, wow, I'm contributing. And then if people bought my products or bought what I was selling and then they had success, they had results, that was a way to contribute. And I felt like I was just giving my absolute best self and using my brain in the best way possible to make the world a better place. And this ultimately led to compensation. I'll never forget when I had my first $10,000 month, like, I still to this day think that moment when I opened up my back end office and it said I got paid on, like, a Thursday, it said $10,000 for the month. I have never felt more rich in my life because, of course, it was the money, but it was like, wow, because because I'm creating all with my brain, like, I have the compensation to reflect that, the results. And this just became this energy because the compensation honestly fired me up to go do the creative process better, connect better, to contribute more, and to get compensated more. It was just like this overwhelming flow and cycle, and it just fired me up. Now, again, this is all before kids, but now remember, I still had this pull. So if you were to think about the Macy who's living in this energetic, vigorous way, there was still a little voice in the back of my head was like, "Hey, don't get too good at this. Don't build up something too much. Don't, let it become more than it needs to be because you will be a stay-at-home mom." That was kind of in the back of my head a little bit. And I remember having this success and being like, "Whoa, whoa, like that's too much. It's too much." Have a little bit more success. Whoa, whoa, that's too much. That's too much. And then I got to this point where I really needed help. Like I really needed to hire people. I needed to be able to leverage myself. And I was having so much fun, but I was scared to hire people because it really stopped being about me. Yeah. Like it no longer was this hobby or this thing to like pass time before a family would come. It became, oh, like I'm actually responsible not only for this person, but also their family and their livelihood. But I really wanted to. Like, I really wanted to keep going and see what was inside of me. Because if I was getting success and enjoying it, like what else could come? And I remember driving down the road and I was kind of talking to a few people, interviewing them, and I was really wanting to hire this one girl. And I just remember driving in silence and being like, okay, Macy, like if you do this, you got to be all in. You know that, right? I'm having this conversation with like these two people. Like if you do this, you got to be all in, and this isn't about you anymore, and you've got to take it to the next level. Like if you do this, there's no turning back. If you do this, no matter how hard, no matter how much doubt, no matter how much uncertainty, no matter what, there's no turning back. It was really this like commitment that I was making to myself. And as I was driving, I was like, okay, like, why do I want to do this? What is it in me that is pulling me towards this direction? I wasn't being pulled. Or excuse me, I wasn't being like pushed in that direction. I was literally feeling this magnetic pull to keep going. And I was thinking like, why do I like want this? Like why is this so fun? Why is this so energetic? Why would I keep going here? And I had this vision of this like no turning back mindset. And I want you to think about this mountain. Well, let me flip this. I want you to think about a mountain. And it felt like going up this mountain right here. And here is myself at the kind of, I just gotten started, right? Like I just started kind of walking up. It was kind of getting a little steep. Okay. It was kind of burning a little bit, if you know what I mean. And I was climbing up it and I was like, okay, why is it worth getting to the top here? What is worth the climb, the burn, getting up to the top? Why does it matter? What is the view? Is what my question was. Like, what is the view that would be at the top that I would be willing to work for? And I just had this like image, just like quick, almost blurry, foggy view that just solidified it for me. And it was a kind of a dramatic picture of what my life could potentially look like and really the impact that could be made if I were to keep going. And I had this is what the picture was. It was a family portrait of me as a grandma. Do you guys ever think about yourself being a grandma? You should, because it's wild. And then it was, my son, my future son that I didn't have at the time, but my son, it was Rush, we'll call him Rush because that's my 2-year-old, and then it was their kids in the photo. So it was myself, my husband, we're grandmas, our kids, or my son and his wife, and then their kids. And I kind of imagined my grandchild walking in, their home and bringing a new friend into their home, and their new friend looked at that portrait of his whole family, including us, and he said, "Oh, is that your, like, whole family? Is that your grandparents?" And my grandson said, "Yes," but he pointed to me, and he said, "Yes, that's my grandma." You know what I'm talking about? Like, when you see a family picture and someone asks about it and you, like, point to a certain person, and you're like, "That's so and so. I have a story about them. They've done something with their life. They've done something big. I wanna tell you a story about that person." And that's what my grandchild did. They said, "That's my grandma." And they said, like, "She changed everything for this family. She changed everything." She was able to build just outrageous financial success that will change our generations for the rest of time, and she was able to do it by helping people learn how to persuade for good. Learn how to use their communication skills to help people get their message across and help other people win. And not only did she change her generations, but the people that she was able to help, she was able to help their generations change forever. And not only was she able to do that, she was an incredible mom. She picked up my dad every day from school. She tucked him in almost every night. She played football with him almost every day. She made dinners, she was at every school play, every game, like, she was so present and also built an empire that changed generations forever. That's my grandma. And the reason I say generations is because, I'll give you just, like, a quick little view of generations. Like, my great-grandfather, his name was Ed, he was a sharecropper, and a sharecropper is, like, the lowest of lowest of lowest of lowest of lows. You can't get any more poor than a sharecropper. And then my grandfather, his name was Crafton, and he was a craftsman, a craftsman. His name was Crafton, and he was a craftsman, which is if a sharecropper is the lowest, a craftsman is just right above. So he didn't go too much further, but he did get a little bit higher on the chain, if you know what I mean. And then my dad was Loy. Now, Lloyd grew up really poor. He never had a bed that fit him. His room was like concrete on the floors, concrete all around him, very, very small. He said he remembers having a lot of love, but remembers not being able to do like anything that his friends could do. And the one thing my grandfather, Crafton, the craftsman, would spend money on. He wouldn't spend money on anything, but the one thing he would spend money on was education. And not like traditional education, but any kind of education outside of traditional education. So any type of training, any type of like extra like thing that you could learn to be able to grow your skills, like he would spend money on that. And so my dad, he knew he wanted to get out of the system. And I say the system, he taught school and he was a coach and just didn't get paid very much. And he wanted to break out and knew that he needed to learn like skills. And, I think Crafton would offer and help to pay for those kind of things, even though he didn't have much money at all. And so through that process, my dad, Loy, learned how to sell. He learned personal development and he found the missing piece, which is what helped him build up his business and be able to make money and change his kind of lifestyle. And with me, like, what I really wanna do is be the one that is able to make something of that, right? Loy figured it out. Loy found the missing piece, but Macy made something of it, like, really big and really powerful. I go into all this, and I want to share this dramatic vision, this dramatic dream, because this is, like, ignited a fire in me. And what's amazing is, like, of course, selling is amazing, like, and making money is amazing, but the byproduct of selling is that you find something inside of you. You find it, you find the fire, you find what life is about. Like that creation cycle, that is what life is about. To be able to create, to connect, to contribute, and the byproduct of those things is to be compensated. That's it. That's how like you were made to live, in my opinion. And so when you find that thing, of course, there comes other things with that, which is like uncertainty and doubt and risk and all these things that can be almost very chilling. And so the thing that keeps you warm when your body is overwhelmed by these chilling things that feel really scary is the dramatic dream. It's the dramatic dream. And this is exactly what that became for me. And so I was driving in that moment, thinking about hiring, thinking about what is the view at the top of the summit? Is it worth it? And in that moment, I made the decision. I said, yes, I'm going all in and I'm doing it. Now, I say all this to say this is before kids. And so all this happened and it's, been so powerful and so amazing. And there has still been chilling effects of uncertainty, of doubt, of risk, of nervousness, of all of those things has absolutely still been there, even with the dramatic dream. But the dramatic dream helps reinvigorate this fire. Selling helps reinvigorate this fire. All of that really helps kind of help you burn and keep it warm despite all of the chilling things. And what happens when you have kids is all those chilling things just kind of get bigger and they get louder and they kind of help you, or they don't help you, they kind of take a little bit more of your focus, because you aren't certain if you're doing motherhood right. You aren't certain if the risk is, you aren't certain. But if you want to keep moving forward, if you want to experience what's on top of the mountain, you've got to keep that dramatic dream really clear and right in front of you. And I really want to emphasize dramatic because, I've talked about this one other time and I talked about how this is me as a grandma. And some of their sponsors was like, wow, I've never ever thought about being a grandma. And the person that actually told me that was probably, a decade closer to being a grandma than me. But she's just thinking about like the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. But to make it dramatic, you've really got to think far into the future and think, if I could have anything, not what's logical, not what you've always known, not what you've seen before, but if I could have anything, what would it be? Dramatic dream. So important. Now, even though the dramatic dream is there, even though it's warm, even though I love it and I feel excited, of course, like I said, the chilling effects of uncertainty, doubt, questioning, all of that still come. So, what I really want to talk about now are the things that you can do to kind of manage your decisions, manage your emotions, manage your mind as you experience these chilling effects of the uncertainty, the doubt, the risk, all of that beautiful stuff that is simply a part of life. And what's amazing about life is like you are always like, even if you were to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom and not wanna work, like, you would still live life with parts of uncertainty and doubt and risk. It would just be in a different flavor, so to speak. So you just decide the flavor and just know you're gonna experience uncertainty in this way, and another mom might experience uncertainty in a different way, and that's okay. That's her life, you live your life, and you work in your own reality and kind of work on your own brain. So, one of the biggest things that has helped me once I've had kids, and kind of working through this identity of like, okay, I am a working mom. I want to be a working mom. I want to be an amazing mom. Like, how do I like make this all work? One of the biggest things for me is that when it gets hard, I don't make any decisions at all. No decisions are made when emotions are high. High emotion equals low intelligence. High emotion equals low intelligence. And there's nothing, in my opinion, more emotional than pregnancy, giving birth, and just motherhood in general. The hormones are insane. They are insane. And they make you like if you've had a kid, you know how insane your brain is. It does the most crazy things. Like literally, when I had my second arch, I remember him laying on the floor in the living room, which was probably like 20 feet away from the kitchen. I was making eggs on the stove, and my brain started having these visions of someone literally putting my kid on the hot pan. You know, motherhood is crazy. You're literally looking for all these dangerous things that could happen to your kid so that you can keep them safe. Like, that's why people are like, "Whoa, I just, like, envisioned me falling down the stairs with my kid in my hand." Like, "What? Where did that come from?" And it's just it's your hormones, it's your brain, it's motherhood. This is how God designed you. How do you keep your baby safe? You look for dangerous things so you know what to avoid. It's all normal. But I'm just telling you these crazy examples to prove that you're just, like, mentally not right and not in the right place to make any decisions. One of the mom told me growing up is when things were really, like, dramatic for me in high school, is she would say, "Go to sleep, it's always better in the morning. Just go to sleep, it's always better in the morning." And she has been correct. It is always better in the morning. So my version of it's always better in the morning is I just pick a day to reevaluate. So, for example, like the way I approached breastfeeding with my first was, okay, of course I like would love to breastfeed as long as possible, but I'm not even going to think about that. I'm going to do my absolute best for 3 weeks. And then at the end of those 3 weeks, I'm just going to evaluate. I'm going to evaluate how my mental state is. I'm going to evaluate how my body feels. I'm going to evaluate him. Is he gaining weight? I'm just going to evaluate the situation and make my next best decision in 3 weeks. That was for me. It could be literally 3 days if that's what you need. But when you're in the middle of the night and your like nipples are bleeding and your baby is screaming and you're engorged, you got so much milk, of course you're tempted to throw in the towel and say, this is not worth it. And what's crazy is like it could be so much better just a few days later, but in that moment, it's just not worth it. And so in the hot and heavy moments, my thoughts are, I'm going to go to sleep and it's going to be so much better in the morning. And then I decide, okay, I'm going to reevaluate in about 3 weeks. And what I found is that every time I got to that 3 week mark and my brain was clear and my emotions weren't crazy, I was like, oh, you know what? It's actually improving a lot. And here's how I would look for all the ways that it was improving. And then I would keep going. And the next thing you know, you wake up and you're just like in a flow and it's no big deal. This is the same thing with your business. When you are feeling emotional and like it's so hard and you feel so pulled, just pause, go to sleep. It's going to be better in the morning, and then reevaluate a little bit. The first thing that I would do when I was kind of feeling better is I would just be like, okay, today I'm going to shower. I'm going to read 3 pages of a book. I'm going to go on a walk and get fresh air. I'm going to drink 3 Stanleys of water, and I'm going to do skin to skin with my baby. That to me was needle moving into working towards the direction of starting to work again at some point. And it just really, really helped my brain in every way. And still to this day, I use that lesson of not making any decisions when emotions are high, going to sleep. It's always better in the morning, and reevaluating at certain periods of my life. The second thing I cannot encourage you, first of all, get a journal. Make sure, I mean, I carry this thing with me everywhere because I have ideas, number one, but just like to write down what's in my brain so that I can look at it. Sometimes you think you're so like one with your own mind and that you are your thoughts when really you're not your thoughts. Your thoughts can actually be optional and you can choose. So I like to write stuff down and look at them as if they aren't a part of me and that I can just watch them. I can be the watcher. And one of the things I like to journal to kind of see like what I'm thinking and what I and get to choose what I want to think is really ask the questions, how can this be easy? Number 1, and number 2, how can this be fun? I know that when I was pregnant with my first, I felt like all I heard was, "It's gonna be so hard, and, your life will never be the same, and, brace yourself." And, like, maybe that's true, and when I kind of would write out some of my thoughts about motherhood, that's what was coming up. It's like, "This is about to be really hard. This is gonna be exhausting. I'm not gonna be able to handle" like, all of those things that I kind of was listening and creating this narrative based on what I was observing from other people. And I just was like, "Okay, what if I just decided that this could be fun and this could be easy? How could that be possible?" And what I found is that things came up that were very true, and I did this with my second because I had an experience with my first, and I was like, "Wow, okay, here's how it can be easy to do motherhood and business." When you have a newborn, you actually have more time. I know. I'm telling you, you do. And here's how I know this because you spend so much time feeding your baby, especially when they're a newborn. You feed them, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times a day. And when they're little, they take forever to eat. At least mine did. I'd be sitting there for an hour sometimes. And that made it really easy to learn. I would just pop a little AirPod in, throw in a podcast, pull up a course that I was working through, put up some trainings that I've been wanting to watch and YouTube videos. I consumed so much training during the newborn season. I came out of the newborn season a completely different person than when I entered it. Now, of course, when he's fresh out of the womb and no one's sleeping, my brain was not ready to consume any of that type of content. But when I started to get a little bit more stretch of sleep, I was like, wow, my brain feels good. I can kind of connect a few things. Like, let me just kind of indoctrinate myself in the direction that I want to be thinking. And I know it can be so tempting to scroll TikTok, and I definitely did that for a period, and I could feel myself, like, letting TikTok describe my narrative, and if you know anything about TikTok, you know that the algorithm is so on point. It tells you exactly it reveals to you your life more than you know your life. And it was revealing to me like newborn motherhood is so hard, like this is exhausting. Shout out to and I was like, okay, they are telling me how to think about motherhood right now and I don't want to think about it that way. So I would just switch my content and it became easy to consume and easy to make these connections in my brain. I heard one time that your brain is the most neuroplastic the year after you have a baby. And it makes sense because it's like your brain is starting to rewire and recalculate how you need to think when it comes to having a baby. Like you hear baby cries differently, right? You hear it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a baby crying. Whereas before, you never heard it before. You think about all the dangerous things that your baby could experience. You're thinking about how to keep them safe and full and warm. These are all natural things, but your brain is rewiring, which is beautiful. Let's leverage this time and consume the content that you want to consume. It also can be easy because you have more focused time. I know that this is blowing your mind right now because everyone says that you have less time. When you have a specific nap period, which I can't recommend enough, moms on call, I know that some people don't like it and there's some thoughts about, training, but that is just what I had to do to be able to function in my life is to get a baby on schedule. And so this baby was sleeping for 2 hours at a time and the amount of work that could get done in 2 hours absolutely blew my mind. And when you sit down and you focus and get to work for 2 hours, I got more done in those 2 hours than I would an entire day without having kids. When you constrain your time, you increase intensity and increase focus and you get it done. And it actually became much easier to work that way. Some ways that it could be some ways that it could be fun. I listed out a lot of ways that it could be fun, but I'll give you just a couple. Number 1 is the creativity that comes. once you become a mom. I remember, kind of being stuck, like, in my work in the nap period and, feeling like a block, and I couldn't kind of make this point that I want the way I wanted to make it, and then it'd be time for the baby to wake up. And I would go and I would get him and I would hug on him, and that baby increased my, like, love hormones and my dopamine, and I felt so happy, and that made me more creative. If you've read The Happiness Advantage, they know, they say that, like, in order to be people think they need to be successful in order to be happy, but what actually needs to happen is you need to be happy so that you can be successful. You be happy first and success comes later. And basically it's like, hey, just create like get joy out of your life now, and that is what creates success. And what's cool about joy is like it comes from like your thoughts first of all, but your thoughts create dopamine and rewards, and being able to hug your baby and feel your baby and kiss on your baby will release dopamine. And I remember having like I could totally feel that dopamine rush, and I like had a breakthrough after I fed him. I was like, "Oh, this is the way to do it." I remember running to my computer, and that was so fun. That's when work I was like, "Oh, this is fun." Like, I can make my motherhood and my business journeys, like, align, and that brings me to my next point of how it's fun. My perspective has changed drastically since having a kid, and the perspective has overflowed into business. It has been such an exciting, experience, and it has made me, like, such a better business owner and a better mom because they just compare so beautifully. The last thing I would just really encourage you to do is to again take your journal. Please write down with a pen and paper. Do not type in your computer. There's something about pen on a paper that makes your brain slow down. Your people will tell me they don't want to write because their hand can't catch up in their brain. And I'm like, exactly. That is the point. We want to slow down your brain so that you can see what's really coming out and coming up for you. So, one of the things I did is I just defined what it means to be a good mom to me. And, growing up, I observed that most moms didn't work. And so that observation and that experience made me assume that you are a good mom when you don't work. And so then I just kind of concluded that just by my life experience. And then I believed that. That became my belief, just like that. But when I started to define good mom, it literally had nothing to do with staying home. Nothing. I couldn't believe it. And I'll tell you a few things that, told me that was my definition of a good mom. Like, I'll tell you the biggest one for me was, a good mom has something of value to offer. And I say this because, I growing up, I just had, like, a lot of sports, and I had a lot of bullying, and I had a lot of, like, mental blocks, and I was always just working so hard, like, I just was developing as a human up, and that's literally what I do right now is, like, I help people develop. I help people block through their blocks. I help them sell better. I help them get the result that they want in their life. I help them manage their mind, help them strategize. Like, I am a coach that helps people sell their offer and, get massive results, outrageous financial success. And I think about my kids being teenagers and experiencing things that are hard and like, I do not expect and I do not want their life to be easy. And I just cannot get over the vision and the visual of me being the person that has something of value to help them in this way. That I can use these skills that I've learned in business and sales and coaching and leadership and just so effortlessly apply it in motherhood when those moments are hard. And you have to be ready before the moment comes. Like, you have to be ready all the time because when the moment appears, like, that's your time to shine. And I just feel like I'm always ready. I'm ready for any conversation. I'm ready for anything that they deal with, my 2 boys. I'm ready for the conversations with his teachers, the conversations with his coach. I'm like ready. I'm so ready for anything that they experience. And I know that is from the journey that I've been on in business. And that excites me so much. To me, a good mom is someone that plays with their kids. I feel like dads are the ones that always play. Like growing up, my dad played and my mom cooked. Like that was just how it was. And I want to be the one that plays with my kids. Like, and that doesn't have to happen in any time frame. It just is the thing that you do. You play with your kids. I'm like, huh, okay, that's interesting. I believe, like for me personally, a good mom is able to create outrageous financial success. And the reason I say that is not because of the money itself. Although I like love the idea of being able to just do whatever, whenever, however we want, but it's really who you have to become in order to have that outrageous financial success. Like people are so quick to think about what they need to do to have success. And I love thinking about who do I have to become to have success? And that who I am, that exciting to me about becoming the person that has outrageous financial success and that becoming of who that is as a mom in their life. And what's interesting is like being a good mom for me in my definition, it had nothing to do with certain like laundry things or cooking things or like it had making meals that everybody loves. Like I'm like, wow, I actually have no problem like making a couple different meals, something that I want to eat, something that they like to eat. I have no problem like having laundry done just one time a week and just making sure that we have enough clothes to get like I have no problem with that. I've no like a home in my opinion, a good mom creates a really warm home. And I am gonna have someone come and decorate my Christmas tree for me because that equals a warm home, not the act of me doing it myself. And that was just such a huge breakthrough for me personally. Like everybody's going to be different. This is what I'm saying. Like you could have 10 moms in front of you and say, define a good mom, define a good mom, define a good mom. And everybody would have a different definition. And every definition would be amazing and beautiful and perfect. What's important is that you decide what is your definition and then live it out. Make decisions based on that. It will relieve so much expectation and so much just pressure that you are putting on yourself that you absolutely do not need to. And so you have that definition of a good mom, you get to create the life that you want based on that definition. So, for example, good moms play for me. So I'm like, when we get home, I pick my kids up from school, or my 2-year-old from school, and, he tells me all about his day driving home, and the first thing we do is we make a smoothie, he puts on play clothes, and we go outside and play football and a half. And then we come in and he helps me make dinner. And then we sit down and we talk about dinner. And I'm like, that feels like so good. That's exactly what I want. That is the business that has been created to support that definition for me of a good mom. I hope that this was helpful and just releases some mental blocks that you might be having. Because if you have a dream and you have a desire and you have a pull to build something that creates so much value and creates so much impact and that compensates you really beautifully, like there's a reason that you have that pull. I believe God puts those pulls in our hearts and like that's his assignment for our life. I just believe. And some people have this pull, some women have a pull to just be full on, stay at home, homeschool, that whole thing. And that is your assignment for your life. And you have your specific kids because, like, that is the assignment that God's put on your life, and I believe, like, I have these type of kids because this is my assignment for my life and who I've been called to be. All beautiful and all are amazing. This video and this content the person has should be loyal to, but don't that are just straddling, and that straddling, like, that's what creates anxiety. Anxiety, it literally means split. Like you are split over a few things. Think about you have a lot of things on your to-do list and your brain is split in all directions. And then you have this anxiety. And it's from this place of just being scattered and confused and unsure. And when you just take a moment and journal some of the things that I just told you about, you are going to lock in and get really clear on what it means for you to create the want, and then that anxiety is just going to lift because you have one thing that you're focused on, not lots of things. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please, and we will see you on the next one. See you later.